Today we are in Australia. A storm surge hit Bondi Beach in the suburbs of Sydney. The elements spared no one. Bondi Beach, and suddenly a storm surge breaks through the front door of a house on the beach. Water rushed inside, washing away everything in its path. Furniture, appliances, personal belongings, everything floated. Local residents were shocked to film how their cozy home turned into a swimming pool. The waves reached 3 meters in height, and this was a real test for beach buildings. Bondi is a popular place for surfers, but on this day the sea showed its dark side. The owners of the house miraculously escaped harm, but the damage is colossal. The walls are soaked with water, the furniture is ruined, and sand is now in every room. Rescuers arrived at the scene to strengthen the coastline, but the storm left chaos in its wake. Meteorologists say that such storm surges are a consequence of climate change, and Australia is increasingly faced with such phenomena. In 2024, a similar storm destroyed homes in Queensland, and now Bondi is in trouble. Bondi is experiencing a water apocalypse, but residents are not giving up. We are moving to Hyderabad, India, where on April 3rd, a powerful flood covered the Banjara Hills area. The water has taken over everything. Banjara Hills, an elite area of Hyderabad, is drowning in water. Heavy rain fell on the city, and in a few hours the streets turned into rivers. The water rose to the knee, and in some places even higher. Cars are floating, households are flooded, and residents are panicking, trying to save their belongings. People are writing on social media, "This is worse than 2020." Rescuers are evacuating people on boats, but the situation is critical: traffic jams, power outages, and chaos. Banjara Hills is an upscale area, but the elements do not choose their victims. Expensive mansions and offices suffered the most. Water-flooded basements, destroyed equipment and furniture. Meteorologists say more than 200 millimeters of rain fell in one day. This is a record for April. The Hussain Sagar and Musi rivers burst their banks, and the city's drainage system could not cope. In 2020, Hyderabad was already flooded, taking 80 lives, and now the authorities are afraid of new victims. Banjara Hills is struggling with water, but the elements are not giving up. We are back in India in Rajasthan, where a dust storm has covered the city of Churu. It was like in a disaster movie. Look, Churu, the morning of April 3rd, and suddenly a huge wall of dust covers the sky. A dust storm hit the city with winds of up to 80 kilometers per hour, turning day into night. Visibility dropped to zero, the roads are empty, and residents are hiding in their homes. Sand penetrated everywhere, into houses, cars, even into eyes. People on social media are writing, "It's like Mars!" The storm lasted more than an hour, leaving behind a layer of sand several centimeters thick. Churu is a desert region, and dust storms are not uncommon here, but this one was especially powerful. The wind tore down signs, broke trees, and sand-clogged car engines. Meteorologists say abnormal heat and dryness created ideal conditions for the storm. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but local farmers are desperate. Crops are covered with sand. Rajasthan suffers from such storms every year, and climate change is only making the situation worse. Churu is being dug out from under the sand, but nature is relentless. And now we are in the Drake Passage, where a cruise liner got into a powerful storm. Waves, wind, and panic on board. The Drake Passage, one of the most dangerous places on the planet, and a cruise liner with hundreds of passengers found itself in the eye of a storm. Waves up to 10 meters high hit the ship, and winds up to 100 kilometers per hour rocked it like a toy. Passengers are in a panic. Furniture was flying around the cabins, dishes were breaking, and many put on life jackets. People are writing on social networks, "We thought this was the end!" The captain tried to take the ship away, but the storm did not let go. The Drake Passage is where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans collide, and storms are common here. But this one was especially cruel. The liner was damaged, windows were broken, the lower decks were flooded, but fortunately there were no victims. Passengers say that this was the scariest journey of their lives. Last year, another liner almost capsized in this strait, and now tourists are wondering, is it worth the risk for such cruises? The Drake Passage showed its power, but the liner survived. If you liked this sea thriller, put a like and write in the comments whether you would dare to take such a cruise. In Lake City, Arkansas, a giant tornado left behind ruins. This is the disaster of the century. Look, the morning of April 3rd, Lake City and a tornado more than 500 meters wide swept through the city like a destructive monster. Winds of up to 200 kilometers per hour blew houses into pieces, turned cars over, and tore trees out by the roots. The streets are littered with debris, and residents are in shock. Their houses have simply disappeared. People are writing on social networks, "This is the end of the world!" According to preliminary data, 10 people were injured, but rescuers are still sorting through the rubble, and the death toll may rise. Lake City is a small town, and it was not prepared for such a blow. The tornado, possibly of the EF4 category, left behind a strip of destruction several kilometers long. Meteorologists say this is part of a storm wave that is raging in Arkansas this spring. Other cities in the state, like Bay and Craighead, were also hit by tornadoes that same day. Residents of Lake City are now collecting their belongings, but many have lost everything. Arkansas is at risk, and new tornadoes may strike again. Lake City is in ruins, but the spirit of the locals cannot be broken. We are heading to Dagestan, Russia, where a forest fire has been raging in the mountains of the Levashinsky district since April 3. The fire cannot be stopped. Levashinsky district, the mountains of Dagestan, and a forest fire has engulfed huge areas. Flames are devouring trees, and thick smoke is rising into the sky, blocking out the sun. The fire began on April 3rd, and by the morning of the 5th, it is still raging. The wind carries sparks, and the fire is spreading at an incredible speed. Local residents are in a panic. The fire is approaching villages, and dozens of families have already been evacuated. On social networks, they write, "It is impossible to breathe the smoke." Dozens of firefighters are involved in extinguishing the fire, but the mountainous terrain and strong winds are making the work difficult. Helicopters are dropping water, but the fire is winning so far. Meteorologists say that the dry spring and lack of rain have made the forest ideal fuel for the fire. There are no casualties yet, but the threat is real. Dagestan has suffered from forest fires more than once. In 2023, a fire destroyed 300 hectares in a neighboring region. Will the rescuers be able to stop the elements? Levashinsky district is on fire, but the fight continues. In Italy, Mount Etna put on a fire show at night. Lava, ash, and roar. On the island of Sicily, Mount Etna has awakened with renewed vigor. Bright streams of lava flow down the slopes, lighting up the sky, and a column of ash has risen 5 kilometers. The roar was heard tens of kilometers away, and the ashfall covered nearby villages. People on social media are writing, "It's like fireworks, but scary." The eruption began suddenly, and the authorities immediately raised the alarm. Etna is one of the most active volcanoes in Europe, and it does not give rest. Residents of Catania and the surrounding villages woke up to the noise and smell of sulfur. Ash covered the streets, cars, and houses, and the Catania airport was temporarily closed due to the threat to air travel. Volcanologists say the temperature of the lava reaches 200,000 degrees, and the eruption may continue. Fortunately, there are no victims, but hundreds of people have been evacuated. Etna erupted in 2023, then the lava reached the outskirts of the city, and now everyone is afraid of a repeat. Etna keeps everyone on edge, and this spectacle is not for the faint of heart. Denver, Colorado, snowstorm caused real weather chaos, lightning, snow, and thunder. Denver, the sky lit up with lightning in the middle of a snowfall this morning. This rare phenomenon, a snowstorm, covered the city, and residents are in shock. Snow was falling in flakes, and thunder was so loud that the windows were shaking. People on social media are writing, "Snow and lightning, it's crazy." The temperature dropped to -5, and winds up to 60 kilometers per hour intensified the blizzard. The roads were covered with ice, and dozens of cars were stuck in traffic jams. Snowstorms are rare, but Denver already saw one in 2021. Meteorologists explain, a cold front collided with warm air, creating ideal conditions for a thunderstorm. Power was out in several areas, and Denver Airport delayed flights. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but there were dozens of accidents on the roads. Colorado is experiencing weather surprises this spring, and this is just the beginning. Denver experienced a snowstorm with lightning, and it was spectacular. We are back in Myanmar. where a man was rescued in Mandalay after spending 5 days under rubble after an earthquake. It's a miracle. Watch. Mandalay, March 28, 2025. A powerful earthquake collapsed a hotel where a worker was staying. The man was trapped under the rubble, but the Chinese rescue team did not give up. 125 hours later, that's more than 5 days, they pulled him out alive. He was dehydrated and weak, but he was breathing. They wrote on social media, "It's a real miracle." Rescuers say the man survived thanks to a small pocket of air in the rubble. The Mandalay earthquake has claimed dozens of lives, and rescue operations are ongoing. The hotel where the worker was staying was reduced to a pile of concrete, but hope was not lost. The Chinese team used thermal imagers and dogs to find survivors. This case has inspired many. Even after so much time under the rubble, you can survive. In 2017, a similar earthquake in Myanmar claimed 50 lives, and such rescues are rare. Mandalay celebrates the miracle of survival, and we are with you. In Selmer, Tennessee, USA, a tornado left behind massive destruction. It's a nightmare come true. Selmer, in the morning, a tornado with winds of up to 180 kilometers per hour swept through the city, leaving chaos in its wake. Houses were destroyed, cars were overturned, power lines were torn. Streets were littered with debris, and residents were in shock. Their lives changed in minutes. People wrote on social networks, "We lost everything." Rescuers reported 8 victims, but the number could increase as they are still clearing the rubble. Selmer is a small town, and the tornado caught it by surprise. It is part of a storm system that is raging in the USA. On the same day, Lake City, Arkansas was also destroyed. Meteorologists say warm air from the Gulf of Mexico has caused a wave of tornadoes across the region. Residents of Selmer are now looking for surviving belongings, but many homes are beyond repair. Tennessee is in the eye of the storm this spring. Selmer is struggling with the aftermath of a tornado, but the spirit of the locals cannot be broken. Today we are near Astrakhan, Russia. Local fishermen filmed a rare phenomenon, 2 dust whirlwinds. What a sight! Look, morning the outskirts of Astrakhan, 2 dust whirlwinds swirled over the fields. These columns of dust rose tens of meters, swirling everything in their path. Sand, branches, small debris. Local fishermen who were nearby managed to film this rare phenomenon. They write on social networks, "Like a tornado but made of dust." The whirlwinds lasted about 10 minutes, but scared everyone who saw them. Dust whirlwinds are not uncommon in the Astrakhan region, especially in the spring when the soil is dry and the winds are strong. Meteorologists say that warm air and strong winds created these mini whirlwinds. Fortunately, there were no casualties or damage, but the dust settled on the fields, which worries farmers. In Seville, Spain, a squally wind caused real chaos. Everything flies. In the morning, a squally wind of up to 90 kilometers per hour hit the city. Trees bent to the ground, signs were torn off, and garbage cans flew along the streets. Residents filmed how the wind blew away everything in its path: umbrellas, outdoor tables, even bicycles. They write on social networks, "It's a hurricane in the middle of spring." Several areas were left without power, and there were dozens of accidents on the roads due to fallen branches. Seville is a tourist city, and the wind caught thousands of visitors by surprise. Meteorologists say that a cold front from the Atlantic brought this storm, and it may continue. Seville is experiencing a wind nightmare, but the city is holding on. In Albacete, Spain, hail has covered the city. Ice apocalypse. On April 4th, hail the size of a quail egg fell from the sky. Ice balls up to 3 centimeters in diameter fell for 15 minutes, turning the streets into a skating rink. Cars are damaged, windows are broken, and sidewalks are covered in a layer of ice. Social media users write, "It's like a winter war." Residents hid where they could, but the hail did not spare anyone. Some areas of the city look like they've had a snowfall, only instead of snow, there's ice. Albacete is an agricultural region, and farmers are in a panic. Crops have been destroyed and greenhouses have been breached. Meteorologists say that spring storms in Spain are becoming more severe due to climate change. Fortunately, there are no casualties, but the damage is estimated at millions of euros. Albacete is recovering from the icy blow, but nature is not giving up.